It's so good to be back here at One Love. Thank you so much for welcoming me again. And today I want to share a little bit of what the Lord has done in my life through the ministry of compassion. I grew up in one of the slums in Metro Manila, and growing up in poverty for me means that both of my parents were jobless. And so they say that poverty affects the different aspects of a child, of the life of a child who's living in that desperate situation. So what that looks like for me when I was growing up is that my mom cannot afford to feed us a full meal. And so like any other child who will go to the project, it's excited for me to have one full meal there. And I remember when I go back to our house, I will share an egg or sometimes a cup of instant noodles with two of my brothers, my mom and my dad. And then I remember too waking up in this little shanty with 17 of my other relatives because both of my parents were not able to buy a house for us. And then in that community too, when I go out in the streets, I will see some of my friends either being sold into child labor and prostitution. And so I knew that at a very young age, I knew that my life is hopeless and desperate. And then comes the emotional poverty. Like any other child in the community was loving parents, they tried to love their children. But then again, my dad became a drug abuser. And so my dad became a drug addict and then left us. And so when I go out of the community, people will tell me, Michelle, you look like your dad. You will become nothing but a thief and a drug addict when you grow up. You're going to be like him. And so again, I knew that I am hopeless, that my future is uncertain. But you know what's the worst form of poverty that I experienced when I was growing up is when I felt that God has forsaken me because the world is telling the poor that they are God-forsaken. But we know that we have a good and sovereign God. And that came to me one day when at the age of 6, my Aunt Carol brought me to this wonderful place named Calvary Church in our little community. And that church was partnering with Compassion during that time. And so I was registered as the 37th child in the Compassion Project. And so the first thing that I've learned there is that Jesus Christ loves me. God loved me through the people that I met there. I was so surprised that when I get there, people will give me a hug. I did not even experience the hug of my mom and my dad when I was growing up. And so I love coming there. But one of the best experiences that I had was when I came to know my loving sponsors. And so in the winter of 1995, I got this picture of them sitting in the snow. We don't have snow in the Philippines, like you guys here. And so I thought to myself, wow, this family must be so rich because they have snow in their backyard. Because I thought you have to buy snow somewhere and dump it in your backyard. But then, with those pictures are the words telling me, Michelle, you are a precious, beautiful little girl. We are so proud of you. We are praying for you. And we love you. And the words of my compassion sponsor touched the very depth of my heart and soul. God used that in healing the broken self-image and the broken self-worth that I have. And because of that, I knew that there is a God who has a plan, a beautiful plan and a future for each one of us, little children, who even in desperate poverty can trust a God who knows our name. And so because of their help, I was able to go to school. I was able to finish a degree in communication arts. I became part of a Christian theater company in the Philippines after my graduation because of the help of my compassion sponsor. And so I became the marketing director of the first ever gospel theater in Asia. And so we spread the gospel all over Asia using the professional performing arts as our instrument. And then in 2008, God has showed me a bigger picture of who He is. And so He allowed me to go to the United States to finish a master's degree at the Moody Bible Institute, and I just graduated last year. And now God has brought me back to my roots to help and serve vulnerable women, women who are trapped in prostitution. And that's the ministry that God has given me now. And it is a privilege and an opportunity for me to show who is this God, who is the God who gives a plan, who gives a hope and a future for us. In Jeremiah 29:11, he said, "For I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, and plans to give you a hope and a future." And he indeed has a plan and a future for each one of us. And that is the very same love, and that's the very same vision that I want for my two compassion sponsor child. So from being a compassion sponsor child, I am now a compassion sponsor, sponsoring two wonderful children from the Philippines and from Burkina Faso. And my prayer for them is that they will know in their hearts that they are loved by a God who knows their name. And so I am so thankful to be here to share with you what the Lord has done through my life. And if you have the opportunity to bless others, I want for us to bless others so that Christ will be glorified and that all people in the world will see that He is a God of compassion. Thank you.